Yo, what's going on, guys? This is the Anime Association back here with another discussion video. Today, we are discussing My Hero Academia Vigilantes, Episode 6. I'm your host, Anime Addict, joined by my co hosts, Ginyu Talk and Kaio Tim. How are you guys doing today?
All good.
I- I'm doing well.
Nice to hear, man.
What about
So,
you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. So, I actually wanted to touch upon something that Tim was kind of talking about on Instagram today. His predictions. You have been getting predictions right for My Hero Vigilantes. How many is this now? I kind of lost track of how many it was.
I'm 2 for 2 at the plate,
Two.
baby. Two for
Okay.
two.
Yeah. So it was pretty obvious that the Stenhall character was staying, but
Okay, don't take it away from me now. Don't take it away from me
they
now like that.
basically confirmed it in this episode. So a lot of fans that were kind of like not fully in the boat of this was staying are now in the boat that this is staying. The main focus of this episode was Sten Hall and his backstory of how he became Stain. I just want to get your overall thoughts on the episode. We'll start with Ginyu first.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, I had a feeling it was him, but I wasn't 100% until this week. It was only when the we got to see the part where he actually did some with the when he did the fight with the Yakuza at the beginning of the episode, and then it was the bit where that's when he saw when he licked the blood. That's when I was like, oh, I know that mother, you know, kind of moment. So it was pretty cool to see that. But it was also nice to see how he becomes who he is, because without obviously going too deep into it until we get to that point, it was just the fact is, it was always the fact that he was he was a villain that obviously liked to kill heroes, and it was really specifically heroes, and how like he judged their their character and so forth. So kind of seeing that he was this hero that wanted to be like All Might, and then and so forth, only to then kind of say heroes are the worst ones, and then kind of get that backstory itself was pretty good. So I'm happy and excited about that one.
Yeah, yeah, Tim.
Uh yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. The one thing I noticed was they didn't show his nose the whole episode until it fell into the sink. They made sure they shadowed it out. I thought he already like didn't have a nose or something at that point in time, but they really shadowed it out until he cut off his nose to make pretty much saying this is now the mask. So he's no longer hiding behind the mask because he is the mask. And I found it very interesting that he excused Knuckle Duster's actions, even though what we've seen Knuckle Duster do is kind of like he wouldn't want to see that because he used to just walk up to people and like, let me see your tongue. Like that's not what a hero does. But according to Stain, Knuckle Duster was working within his ideology at that point in time.
Yeah, you're talking about like in the alley when he said that we kind of like think alike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me personally, this might have been the best episode overall. I love the backstory we got on Stain and how he became Stain. Um, also the Spike character. We got a little bit into his backstory to where they almost made us feel like bad for him. Did you guys happen to feel bad for him, or did you like his backstory at all? We'll start with Tim on this one.
I felt neutral about it, honestly. If anything, I'm starting to see if anything, it gave me more to believe he's going to end up becoming a part of the vigilante team because we already seen the episode before where he was like, "Oh, well, I know somebody that can join us," and he ended up bringing him to him, and he was like, "No," he left out, and now we're getting a backstory of him, and conveniently, they are all in the same alleyway right now.
Yeah, can you?
I mean, I wouldn't say like it was, as I said, I'll probably say what Tim was saying is like, yeah, it was neutral. I think it was, you could see, like, like where his hatred towards people, thinking that they always look down on him. So I saw that, but that wasn't the most interesting bit. I think as a whole, I kind of started to feel bad more for him and his crew, because as soon as they got discharged from the hospital, and they're just hanging out, and he's like, that interaction made them sound like they're just chilled guys, because they were like, oh yeah, did the flying thing, been there, done that, don't want to do that again, and then they were like, oh yeah, here the nurses, they're quite cute, this and that, just a bunch of just chilling, and I kind of felt bad for them, because I felt like, oh crikey, it just feels like they've just been pulled into this stuff that they just wanted to be normal people chilling and just hanging out. So that's where I kind of felt bad, but not so much on, is it Soga? I mean, his backstory was okay, but I think I was more interested in the dynamic that his friends were having, because that's where I kind of started feeling that empathy towards them, in terms of them getting mixed up with Trigger and everything.
Yeah, if anything, the one thing that made me feel bad for him was the trigger was forced upon him. He didn't want to take it, and then that was probably the only thing where I was like, damn, I actually like, because nobody wants to be drugged, right? So and then like he had no choice whatsoever. So that would be the one thing I would be like, I felt bad for him about that.
Yeah, I did too, especially when B, kind of forced it upon him, and then he just suddenly transformed against Stenhall. And to touch off of what Ginyu was saying, I was kind of wondering during the episode, like, why exactly he was meeting up with B, and I'm assuming that everyone that takes the trigger is basically tied together, like, once you take it, there's no going back type of thing. Did you guys take the same thing away from that scene there? We'll start with Tim.
Kinda, yeah. Like why was he meeting B, or like, yeah, like you can't get like he doesn't want to take it, but yet he's obviously still meeting with her and stuff. So I wonder if there's like a type of like blackmailing type of situation going on. We already know, if you're dealing with All For One, that there's obviously something more sinister at hand that would keep somebody to keep coming back and doing that stuff, because obviously they're trying to exploit his situation at this point in time, as obviously he's impoverished and living on the streets presumably and stuff like that. So that's easy to take advantage of, and I think that's leaning on that too. They can't leave even if they wanted to.
Yeah, Ginyu.
Yeah, I think I'd seen it slightly a little bit different, because I thought he was meeting her because he didn't want his pals to be involved. So he thought it kind of felt like by him putting himself out there, it was him protecting his guys, because he just seen, because he initially asked his guys, do you want to fly again? If he had said yes, I think he might have been like, all right, cool, we can do this. But then I think in that conversation with his guys, I think where they were saying like the whole effects of Trigger itself, I think that kind of changed his mind, and then kind of try to pull them out and then put himself in the front. So that's why he met up with B, because he just didn't want her to be anywhere near his guys, because based on what they're saying, is that like they had a kind of like a rough time with Trigger, so he just didn't want them to go through that again.
Yeah, that was also my final take from that situation, because I feel like he is the leader basically, so he felt like he had to take charge of this situation. He had to put himself at the front line pretty much and meet up with B, but he did not know that Stenhall would be there. So we start to get into the fight with that, and Koichi is, I guess, on his night patrol or whatever he's doing. Right, he hears something and he goes into the alley. At first, he doesn't know like what to do, but then he realizes that Stenhall is actually trying to kill Spike. So that's when he steps in, and then the two of them start going at it a little bit, and then we start to see Knuckle Duster show up, and he and Stenhall start to fight. What was your guys' takeaway from the fight? We'll start with Ginyu on this one.
It was also the takeaway was that I think Stain didn't feel like he is who he says he's always been. I think it kind of came across as someone that he decides what's justice based on who he believes he can kill and who's weaker than. Because the moment Knuckle Duster got in there, he knows, as you said early on, is that he knows Knuckle Duster is not straight edge. He's a bit wonky in terms of what he does, but he looked at him and he looked at it up and said, I might not win this one. So then that's when he tried to do the whole ploy of like, I have no qualm with you. We are both the good guys, because he knew he wasn't sure if he could beat Knuckle Duster, and that's when he then kind of tried to take that step back. But then later on, he kind of went for it, only to have the Knuckle Duster vindicate the fact that he couldn't wash Knuckle Duster. So that's kind of what I've seen, is that I felt like he's more of one of those that if he can beat you, then he'll impose his justice. If he can't beat you, he'll tell you we ain't got no problems, even if you're one of the worst of the worst.
Yeah, while I did like the fight, it was kind of annoying to see that he was, kind of going back and forth. Like he wanted to fight him, but that he didn't want to fight him. But my favorite part was when Knuckle Duster basically like lured him to cross that little line that he put down, right? And then he starts coming at him, and instead Knuckle Duster is the one to step over the line and punch Stenhall, which actually broke his nose, which led to him cutting off his nose later. But we'll touch upon that. Tim, what was your takeaway from the fight?
I was going to bring up the same thing that you just brought up, and I thought that was the big moment for Stain himself, because the inner monologue he's having is, you're telling me not to cross the line. Well, this is what heroes do. Heroes always cross the line. And literally, as soon as he said that, Knuckle Duster crossed the line and took him out. But also I think I might have missed something, because even before leading up to that point, Soga, I'm still confused as to why Soga and Stain were going to even initially fight in the first place. Because B called him to the alleyway, and it was already set up to be a fight. Stain was already going to go after Soga. And I understand the whole thing about, but it was just kind of like confusing as to why Stain, like, because he obviously didn't really know who Soga was. So it was like, why is he willing to do this behind another villain? And it was like, that part was confusing to me.
Yeah, I also had questions about basically like the whole lineup of like who they're targeting. Like, why are they targeting them? What exactly are they after? Are they just after their blood, or is there something else behind it? I was curious as to whether B was basically initiating the orders, or if it was all for one behind the scenes, kind of initiating the orders of like who they need to take out. Because I'm trying to remember. I think there might have been another villain that had pictures of people. Was there not, or am I just thinking of Stain?
No, I think it was the Yakuza that had pictures of people.
Okay, yeah. So they flashed that in the beginning, and I'm assuming that's why Stain went after them in the beginning, because they were basically after the same targets, but Stain wanted to be the one to go after the actual targets.
Could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Okay. So yeah, towards the end, basically this is like the full circle of like the origin of Stain, like him becoming Stain. Um, we see like he cuts off his nose, basically having the same appearance as he does in the original series, but he also kind of turned on B in this situation. Were you guys surprised by that moment? We'll start with Tim on this one.
Not really. I was more surprised at the fact that he was working with B, but that also just shows the complete one 180, maybe not even a full 180, but like a 90-degree turn of his ideology after facing Knuckle Duster. Was like he got hit so hard he became even more of a radical type of thing. Like I think that was his breaking point right there, was with Knuckle Duster. So I think the initial shock was the fact that he was willing to work with B, and him actually going after B. It was like kind of like a here we go type of moment, more so than like a shocking factor to me.
All right, can you?
I think it was. I wasn't too surprised, but like it was more. I was more surprised that he tolerated her for as long as he did, because as I said, off screen, I hate that girl, bro. Like that girl just anytime she talks, it just annoys me so much. Because she's so sinister. But obviously, this is testament to good writing. But she's so sinister, and it was just annoying me so much, because there are people you just genuinely feel like she's just troubling people that don't want to be troubled, and getting them, cooped up into things that they don't want to be. But I was quite happy when staying through the knife at her. I won't lie, I did think because I had to remind myself. I was like, oh, this is episode 6. I don't. Oh, is she already out? Kind of thing. And then obviously towards the end, that's when she pulls it out, and all of that stuff. But but yeah, no, I'm happy to have seen the origin story of Stain. Obviously, like in MHA is not in the original MHA, he's not really that prominent, but it was good to see how he becomes that menace that he is, and that and why he's so feared. So that was quite cool.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it wasn't necessarily the fact that he turned on her that shocked me, but just the fact that I thought she might have been dead. That's what shocked me. But he actually landed the knife like in the eye where all those like bees are, and I'm assuming the bees are what saved her because when she pulled it out, there was some bees and I guess a little bit of the trigger serum kind of trickling off the knife there.
Hmm.
But to wrap things up, what are your guys' predictions for episode 7 next week, Tim?
Uh, I don't know if I have a direct prediction for episode 7. I know so I did watch the episode preview and there was some chick that was involved in there. I thought that was Koichi's mom, but I might have just zoned out while watching it. But I have a feeling either Pop Step or Koichi are going to get hit with the trigger serum and they're going to have to stop. I could see that maybe happening to Pop Step because she plays more of a back role of the whole crew. So having someone as meek as her losing control would make more sense than Koichi losing control. Like, how are we going to handle Pop Step when we know she's not a criminal?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that might have been Koichi's aunt, but I guess mom or aunt, it doesn't really matter. It's probably a relative. They were kind of teasing Pop Step, getting jealous and like stalking them because um when she was healing Spike, like kind of fixing him up and stuff, it appeared that she kind of got like embarrassed just thinking about him. I sort of feel like we might see a romance bloom. I know we kind of touched upon it last week. But prediction wise, I could see that happening. But what about you, Ginyu?
Um, full disclaimer, I don't really watch previews. I like to go in all blind on that. But I think my overall prediction for the coming up for the next episode, I think you did say something a little bit earlier. I think they're probably going to start hinting at seeds of maybe getting Spike, to join the Vigilantes. I think it's not outright going to be okay, cool, here, pal, join. I think it's going to be those. He's just there. Koichi's there. They're having a conversation, or as you said, where if it's his aunt or something, they're just walking by and they see him and he says something to him, kind of thing. Those little seeds to hopefully lead us into the later episodes to where something happens and then he eventually joins. But I think as of next week, after especially after Koichi saving him and helping him, I think that's where it starts to really to drop those little seeds.
I do want to ask y'all something before we wrap up all the way, right? Do you think how Stain was handled in the main series and how it came to be in this episode here, do you think it kind of diminishes who Stain is in the main series and how he got handled in the alleyway by Deku and them? Or do you think it kind of follows the same line of like the Stain seemed like he was less of a threat now after this, pretty much is what I'm saying.
Hmm. I,
I'll probably say oh god. I was going to say no because we obviously don't know what's happened leading up to that because there is a lot of Stain is not so much full on black and white. He has subjective gray zones where he feels it's a gray zone. So, maybe he had a lot more gray zones with Deku and Co. And, whereas he never really, he liked them, but he didn't like them. And he saw what they could be and he just wasn't as serious because it always felt like if Stain really wanted to end you, he could end you without and that's kind of how I felt in terms of the connection itself.
yeah, I agree with Ginyu. I think because of his definition of being like a hero or villain is kind of like black and white. It's not necessarily definitive. I think that like his threat is basically the same when he fights a vigilante or if he fights a hero, because they all kind of are evil in his eyes. So he just sees them all the same. But that's what I think for that.
Yep.
But yeah, that's going to wrap things up for MHA Vigilantes episode 6. You guys let us know your thoughts down in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That'll help us out a lot. And we will catch you next week for episode 7.